Billionaire CEO hugged a poor girl by mistake. What she did next made him fall deeply in love. He smelled like wealth, like cedar wood, leather seats, and somewhere she'd never belong. But his arms were already around her, tight, familiar, like he knew her. And for one fragile second, she didn't pull away, until she spun around and slapped him with her purse. "You're not my sister," he stammered. Her voice didn't tremble. "No, but thanks for the hug. I've had a really bad day." The hug that changed everything. She didn't mean to be standing there alone. Not in a train station that echoed with polished shoes, goodbye kisses, and people who actually had somewhere to go. Livia's sweater was the kind that had been washed too many times. Faded, fraying at the edges. Like her. She clutched a purple backpack she borrowed from her cousin and a grocery bag with apples on sale, all while praying her mom's bus wasn't late again. Meanwhile, 30 feet away, he was scanning the crowd like a man on a mission. William Smith didn't get lost. He owned the buildings people got lost in. But here he was, a billionaire CEO in a tailored coat, whispering to himself. Yellow sweater, tied hair, purple backpack. Where is she? He spotted her, ran straight for her, and wrapped his arms around her like it was the end of a war. He froze, and in a split second, the warmth cracked into panic. "You're late," he laughed, swinging her like she was weightless. "Were you playing Uno with old ladies again?" Her elbow jabbed back. He stumbled, and that's when their eyes met. She wasn't his sister. Not even close. "What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. "I thought you were someone else." He tried to explain. But it didn't help that his cologne cost more than her rent, or that his suit looked like it could sign contracts on its own. She raised her purse like a gavel. "Do you always hug strangers at train stations, or is this your new hobby?" People stopped, watched. Even the security guard paused mid-step. And then something cracked. His hands went up. "You're right, I messed up. But you punch like a UFC champion, so I think we're even." She squinted at him, eyes sharp, but the corner of her mouth twitched. "And what's your name, Mr. Huggus Stranger?" William Smith." "Ah," she said. "So you're not just insane. You're rich and insane." He offered a sheepish smile. "I promise I'm mostly normal." She stared at him, long enough for something to shift in the air. "I'm Livia, and this," she glanced down at the backpack, the sweater, the shopping bag, the whole mess, "is me, waiting for my mom." His sister appeared moments later, wearing the yellow sweater with no purple backpack. William turned back toward Livia, but she was already walking away. Before she left, she tossed him one last look. Playful, haunting. "Next time, check the face before the hug, Romeo." He stood there, frozen. Because even with a purse mark on his arm, it suddenly felt like the day hadn't gone wrong. It had just begun. Chapter 1. The Wrong Hug. He'd practiced the moment in his head a dozen times on the train. The surprise hug, the teasing line about being late, maybe even lifting her off the ground the way he used to when they were kids. William Smith was a man who didn't make mistakes, at least not publicly. As CEO of Smith Hotels, he built empires by making decisions, fast, calculated, confident. But none of that mattered when he saw the yellow sweater, tied-up hair, purple backpack, standing alone near platform 9. "Emily," he murmured to himself, smiling for the first time all week. He didn't hesitate. He walked up fast, quiet, and with the certainty of someone who owned everything he touched. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Got you," he whispered against her shoulder. "You're late. What were you doing? Playing Uno with old ladies on the train?" She went rigid. A strange silence filled the moment. Not the good kind. He felt her breath catch. Then, well, her elbow connected sharply with his ribs. "Excuse me?" The woman spun around, eyes wide with fury. "What the hell are you doing?" William stumbled back, arms raised like he was caught shoplifting emotion. "I thought, my sister, I'm so sorry. You grabbed me," her voice was sharp, "from behind, like some creep in a designer trench coat. I swear I thought you were someone else." She glanced him up and down. Let me guess, all women in yellow sweaters are free game now? What is this, hug roulette? No, I saw the backpack too. The hair. He paused, realizing how ridiculous he sounded. She squinted, sizing him up. You always this charming? Or is this just your strategy to meet women? Because I gotta say, most people start with hello. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The woman crossed her arms. What kind of man thinks it's okay to grab a stranger in a train station? He dropped his hands and let out a breath. The kind who made a mistake. A stupid, awkward mistake. She looked at him for a long beat, and then, against all odds, she smiled. Not fully, just the corner of her mouth twitching, like a secret slipping out. Well, she said finally, at least you didn't kiss me. He laughed then. Not because it was funny, but because he suddenly couldn't remember the last time someone talked to him like this. Like he wasn't powerful, or rich, or important. A guy who messed up. He extended his hand. I'm William, and I promise this is the weirdest thing I've ever done. She hesitated, then shook it. Livia, and you've officially made my day more interesting. Just then a voice called from across the platform. William! He turned. His sister, actual yellow sweater, no backpack, was waving at him with a latte in hand. William glanced back at Livia. He looked sheepish, embarrassed, still holding on to the remnants of whatever spell that hug had cast. So, turns out I tackled the wrong girl. Livia tilted her head, mock serious. You think? Emily jogged up, looked from him to Livia, then back again, and grinned. Oh my God. You finally hugged a woman and it wasn't a board member. It was a mistake, he snapped. No, Livia said. It was more like an ambush, but I've had worse. Emily, clearly enjoying every second, whispered loudly, She's cute, you should date her. William turned scarlet. Livia just smirked. Well, Mr. Hug a Stranger? Maybe next time, just check the face first. And with that she turned and walked away, her purple backpack bouncing behind her, vanishing into the crowd like something out of a dream. Emily nudged her brother hard in the ribs. You okay? He didn't answer. He just stared after her, like he'd lost something he hadn't known he was looking for. Sometimes the moment you want to undo is the one that starts everything worth keeping. When William watches her disappear and knows, without understanding why, he wants to see her again. What if the mistake that embarrassed you was really the beginning of everything meant for you? Chapter 2. The Girl from the Theater. 3 days later, William Smith found himself at the mall. Not because he needed anything, not because he had time, but because Emily wouldn't stop texting. Movie night, no excuses, be there. You owe me for crashing into that girl like a linebacker. Seriously, it's a rom-com, you need it. So here he was, wearing sunglasses indoors, hoodie over his dress shirt, looking less like a billionaire CEO and more like a paranoid spy. The theater lobby smelled like fake butter and carpet glue. He hated it. And yet, something about the chaos felt normal. Emily skipped up beside him, already holding 2 tickets and a tray of nachos. You look like a hungover secret agent, she said, eyeing his shades. Perfect, he muttered, exactly the look I was going for. They were still arguing over soda flavors when he saw her. Livia, standing a few feet away in jeans and a sunflower print t-shirt. Laughing, head thrown back. Her friend was gesturing wildly, like conducting an invisible orchestra. And Livia was the music, light, alive. William froze. Emily, don't look now. She whipped around so fast her hair slapped him in the face. Too late. Livia's gaze met his. Her smile dropped for half a second, then lifted again, like a dare. She walked straight over. Well, she said, arms crossed. The serial hugger. Following me now? William raised his hands in mock surrender. I swear this was not planned. Right. I bet you GPS tracked my backpack. You hit me with it, remember? That thing's a weapon. Livia's friend elbowed her playfully. "This the guy you told me about, with the toothpaste smile?" William blinked. "I have a… what?" Livia's face turned crimson. "Mel, stop." "I'm Mel," the friend grinned, "and you must be William, the CEO/accidental hugger." Emily jumped in, practically glowing. "This is perfect. You're seeing the same movie, right?" Livia started. "Excellent," Emily said without waiting. "You'll sit with us." Livia raised an eyebrow. "Are you always this pushy?" "Only with fate," Emily winked. They ended up in the same row, Emily and Mel in the outer seats, which left William and Livia side by side in the dark. Halfway through the previews, he leaned in. "Can I buy you a soda as an apology for the trauma I inflicted?" She whispered back. "I think a soda, a large popcorn, and a therapist note would be the bare minimum." He laughed. And for the first time in weeks, he forgot about the board meeting tomorrow, about the emails he hadn't returned, about the legacy he was always being told to live up to. When the movie started, a clumsy man spilling coffee on a woman, then running into her over and over again, he felt Livia's arm brush his. Neither of them moved. After the film, they all went to a small cafe nearby. Livia twirled her straw in a milkshake. "So, confession. I'm currently unemployed." "Same," Mel added, "except I'm choosing to call it freelance fabulous. I plan kids' events," Livia continued, "or used to, until a baking soda volcano exploded all over a city councilman's bald head." "It wasn't her fault," Mel interrupted. "The kid added too much vinegar." William nearly choked on his espresso. The bald politician with blue glitter in his eyebrows? 2 weeks, he couldn't get it out. William wiped tears from laughing. "You're hired," he said. Livia blinked. "Excuse me? My company's looking for someone to coordinate internal events. I mean, if you're open to it." She studied him carefully. "And under skills, I should put, ambushed CEO at a train station? Might give you an edge." Later, when the check came, Emily and Mel mysteriously disappeared to look at candles, leaving William and Livia alone again. He cleared his throat. "So, that job thing, was it serious? Or just a clever way to keep me talking?" "Both," she said honestly. "I need the job, and I wouldn't mind seeing what it's like working for a man who smells like a credit score." He laughed. "It's cedarwood, from Paris." She smiled. "I figured." He pulled out his phone. "Give me your number, I'll have HR reach out." She hesitated, then typed it in. "If I get glitter on your boardroom table, you can fire me." "You'd probably improve it." As they said goodbye, William glanced down at his screen. He hadn't saved the contact, and when he looked back up, she was already gone. It's terrifying how one person can feel like everything you didn't know you were missing when their arms touch, and neither pulls away. What if fate doesn't knock? It just bumps into you at the movies. Chapter 3. Interview with the Man Who Hugged Me. Livia stood in front of the skyscraper that glittered like it didn't know what rent was. Smith Hotels International. The place looked like it judged you just for blinking too slowly. Her heels were thrifted, her suit 3 years old. Clearance rack, one stubborn shoulder pad. But her hands were steady as she clutched her resume. This was the job, the kind that paid more than survival, the kind that came with health insurance, the kind that could change everything. Inside the lobby, the air smelled like leather, ambition, and orchids that probably cost more than her entire grocery budget. "Interview?" the receptionist asked, already smiling too hard. "Livia Perez, 10 o'clock. The woman tilted her head. "Ah, yes. 22nd floor. Someone will be waiting for you." "Someone?" Livia hoped it wouldn't be him. She wasn't ready to make eye contact with the man who had once lifted her like a sack of potatoes at a public train station. The elevator felt like it rose into heaven. Marble walls, mirror ceiling, a version of herself reflected back, nervous, but trying not to show it. When the doors opened, a woman with perfect posture greeted her. "Miss Perez, I'm Diane Palmer, head of HR. Follow me." They walked through a quiet hallway that looked like a luxury spa built for billionaires with time anxiety. "Mr. Smith likes to personally handle final interviews for strategic roles." Livia froze. Mr. Smith, as in William Smith? Yes, Diane said. He rarely does this. Consider it special. Before she could process what was happening, Diane opened the door. And there he was, behind a desk that could host a banquet, wearing a navy blue suit that made him look even more unreachable. He looked up, and froze too. Livia, he said quietly. William, she answered, equally stunned. Diane blinked. You? Know each other? William stood fast, adjusting his tie. We've met, in a very impactful way. Livia crossed her arms, literally. William chuckled, waving Diane off. I'll handle the interview myself. As the door closed behind them, silence filled the space. It wasn't awkward. It was charged, like a fuse waiting to burn. He gestured toward the chair. Please, sit. She did, back straight, eyes locked. The air between them had history already, even if it was only a few strange days old. So, he began, walking around a perch on the edge of his desk. You really applied? You really posted the job? I meant what I said. Your resume's impressive, even the glitter incident. You looked me up? My HR team is very efficient. She raised an eyebrow. Also, he admitted, I asked Emily, she asked Mel. That's either creepy or sweet. He shrugged. I'm hoping for sweet. They both smiled. And then, as if they remembered why they were there, the mood shifted. Okay, Livia said, sitting up straighter. Interview mode. Right. William flipped a folder open. Tell me about your experience. The next 30 minutes surprised them both. Livia was smart, experienced, funny. She told stories about last-minute birthday cake disasters and surviving a charity gala where the MC fainted mid-sentence. She even managed to make a PowerPoint presentation crash sound interesting. William listened, genuinely fascinated. At one point, he read from her resume. The languages spoken, English, Spanish, and enough Italian to order pizza and yell at taxi drivers. She smirked. It's a very specific skill set. I like specific. He said it too softly. She looked away, cheeks warming. Eventually, William cleared his throat. Technically, he said, this role would be directly under me. Professionally speaking, I hope. He coughed. Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes. Their eyes met again. The tension returned. Not awkward, but vulnerable. Do you think you could work with me? He asked. Livia leaned back, thoughtful. You mean, could I work in a building where I once hit the CEO with a purse? Sure. Why not? I wasn't exactly innocent, he murmured. I wasn't exactly sorry, she returned. Then she extended her hand. So, do I get the job? William took it. Their handshake lingered. He looked at her, just a little too long. You start Monday. When she stepped into the elevator, Livia didn't breathe until the doors closed. She stared at her reflection again. Same girl, same second-hand heels. But now, she had a job, a future, and maybe something more. Her phone buzzed. William. Team alignment dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. Bellini's. Yellow sweater not required. She smiled, her reflection smiling back. Livia. Confirmed. No purse attacks on CEOs. You can prepare for an interview, but nothing prepares you for feeling something real. When William takes her hand and says, you start Monday, what if you walked into a job and found the beginning of a love story instead? Chapter 4. A professional affair. Bellini's looked like the kind of restaurant where people whispered over caviar and signed deals on napkins worth more than her monthly rent. Livia stood at the entrance, gripping her clutch. No yellow sweater tonight. Just a black dress, simple, elegant, with sleeves that made her feel like she belonged in her own skin. Reservation under Smith, she told the host, trying to keep her voice steady. The man gave a small nod. Right this way, Miss Perez. She followed him past candle-lit tables and crystal glasses that chimed with soft clinks. Couples murmured to each other. Businessmen nodded over steak. Everyone looked like they fit. Except her. Until she saw him. William was already seated at a table by the window. Navy button down, no tie, sleeves rolled. And that smile. Warm, unsure, like he wasn't quite sure she'd come. "You made it," he said, standing to pull out her chair. "I was hired yesterday," she replied, arching an eyebrow. "It'd be weird to miss my first meeting." He gave a half laugh, gesturing at the table. Private onboarding session, totally professional. She sat, of course, in one of the most romantic restaurants in the city. Very HR compliant. He looked embarrassed for a second. "We can leave if it's weird." She adjusted her napkin. "And miss the champagne I can't afford? Not a chance." They started with small talk, hotel expansion plans, her thoughts on conference logistics, a mild debate about floral arrangements. But somewhere between the appetizer and the second glass of wine, the conversation shifted. William told her about his worst event disaster, a governor stuck in the elevator, a melting cake, and a champagne bottle that exploded on his suit just before a press conference. Livia almost spit her wine. "What did you do?" "I grabbed a tablecloth, tied it like a toga, and ran up 6 flights of stairs. Saved the event. No one noticed my pants were 2 sizes too big." She was laughing too hard to breathe. "I wish I had seen that." He leaned in slightly, eyes soft. "You make me laugh, Livia. That doesn't happen much." She stopped, blinked, and realized something she hadn't expected. She liked this man. Not the CEO, not the luxury. The man. The one who told ridiculous stories and held his champagne flute like he didn't quite know what to do with it. "Okay," she said finally. "But tell me something real." He paused. "Real?" "Yeah, everyone wants something, even the CEOs with corner offices and cufflinks." "So what do you want?" He looked down at his glass, then out the window. The city lights reflected in his eyes like stars he wasn't sure how to reach. "I wanted to be an architect," he said. "Used to draw buildings when I was a kid. Still have a drawer full of sketches no one's ever seen." Livia blinked. "You're serious?" "My father got sick, I had to take over the company, everyone expected it, so I did. But not what you wanted." He shrugged. "Sometimes doing the right thing feels like losing a piece of yourself." She didn't speak for a moment. Then quietly, "It's never too late." He looked at her, really looked. And something passed between them. Not flirtation, not playfulness. Just truth. Dessert arrived, some fancy tower of cream and berries. William barely touched it. Instead, he fidgeted with his napkin, then looked up. "Livia," he said softly, "I have to be honest. This isn't really a work dinner." She froze. "I wanted to see you," he continued, "outside the office, without job titles between us." Livia stared at him. "Are you saying this is a date?" "Only if you want it to be." She swallowed, hard. "This is complicated, William. You're my boss. I won't cross any lines. And if you'd rather keep things strictly professional, I'll respect that. Completely." She picked up her fork, stirred her dessert, then looked up and said, "And if I don't want to?" His face lit up, not smug, not victorious, just hopeful. After dinner, he offered her a ride home. She hesitated. "You don't have to." "I want to, unless you're still worried I'm a maniac from the train station." "Now you're a 5-star maniac, much better." In the car, they sat in silence for a while. The city rolled by in glowing streaks. When they reached her building, modest, slightly worn, he parked and turned to her. "Thanks for tonight," he said. "It was surprising," she finished for him, in the best way. Then, slowly, carefully, he leaned in. Not fast, not arrogant, just a man asking a question with his eyes. She could have pulled away. She didn't. Their lips met, soft, hesitant at first, and the warmer, real. When they parted, both were breathless. "That was," William started. "A mistake?" she offered, half joking, half scared. "No," he whispered. "That was everything." She got out, smiled, walked up the stairs. In the moment the door closed behind her, she slid down to the floor, clutching her chest, laughing, shaking. What was she doing? Her phone buzzed. "William, Got home safe. Just letting you know, I'll keep pretending nothing happened while thinking about it every 5 minutes. She replied, Livia, deal. See you Monday, Mr. Smith. And then she screamed into her pillow like a teenager. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to feel like the beginning of something real. Their first kiss, hesitant, electric, undeniable. How do you stay professional when the person who believes in you also makes your heart forget every rule? Chapter 5. Rumors don't wait for permission. By Tuesday, Livia had memorized every creak in the hallway of the 20th floor. Her first official week at Smith Hotels had barely begun, but the tension already clung to her like perfume that wouldn't wash off. She was organized, sharp, 3 steps ahead on every assignment. But the stares, they whispered louder than any meeting memo. Miss Perez, William said that morning, catching her near the break room, I wanted to say, your proposal for the Malibu launch, flawless. She smiled softly. Thank you, Mr. Smith. That pause between them, not long, not improper, but just enough to feel like something unsaid filled the air. A passing intern glanced at them, then at her, and Livia felt it like a prickling at the back of her neck. It wasn't William. He was careful, respectful, distant during the day. Their late-night texts stayed hidden in the soft glow of their phones. It was everyone else. Natalie Parker, the immaculately dressed director of marketing, had made her opinion known through a single look at the Monday morning meeting, a glance that scanned Livia's thrifted blazer and landed with a smirk. Sweetie, Natalie said later in the break room, her tone dipped in fake honey. At your last job, did the copies make themselves? Livia didn't flinch. She sipped her coffee, smiled, and replied, No, but the mean girls usually did. William, passing by, nearly choked on his donut. By Wednesday, the whispers had evolved into more than just hallway glances. She found a note on her desk. Unsigned, typed, no flair. No one rises that fast without sleeping with someone. Watch your step. Livia stared at the words. Her hands didn't shake. But inside, something crumbled. That night, she called Mel. So? Mel asked, chewing something crunchy. Corporate Cinderella? Did you kiss the CEO prince again today? Don't joke, Livy whispered, curled up on her apartment couch. It's bad. Define bad. I think I only got the job because we... She couldn't finish. His voice changed. Do you like him? Livia closed her eyes. Yes. Then what are you so afraid of? That maybe liking him makes them right? Thursday came with another hit. William, in a boardroom full of executives, announced, Livia will be leading the Malibu launch event. Natalie's voice cut through like ice. With all due respect, she's been here 2 weeks. And she's outperformed expectations in those 2 weeks, he replied calmly. Livia sat there, perfectly still, as 30 pairs of eyes did the math. A woman. New. Promoted. Admired. And the man who promoted her couldn't stop looking at her when he thought no one noticed. That afternoon, William found her in the elevator. She hesitated before stepping in. You okay? He asked gently. She pressed the button for floor 20. We're being too obvious. His brows furrowed. What do you mean? People are talking. He sighed. I don't care what they think. I do, she said, her voice tighter than she meant. Because when I walk into a room, they don't see my work, they see you. The elevator doors opened. She stepped out without turning back. He didn't follow. That night, her phone buzzed. William, I never meant to hurt your career. I'll fix this. Please, don't shut me out. She typed 3 different replies, deleted each one. Then turned her phone off. Friday, 10:13 a.m. Livia sat at her desk, reviewing venue blueprints for the Malibu Gala. She had barely slept, her eyes burned, but her spine stayed straight. She wouldn't let them win. Not like this. At 11:02, her intercom blinked. Miss Perez, Mr. Smith's father would like to see you upstairs. Her blood ran cold. The top floor was silent. Richard Smith's office felt like something out of a historical drama. Wood, leather, and power. The kind of power that didn't explain itself. He didn't stand when she entered, just nodded at the seat across from him. Miss Perez, he began, let's not waste time. He said, my son has a tendency to blur lines, especially with pretty women in the office. Livia blinked, stunned. Had received some concerning photographs. He slid them across the table. There she was, laughing near the break room, talking on the phone in the hallway. Moments frozen, out of context, carefully curated. There's nothing inappropriate here, she said quietly. He leaned back, unimpressed. You're smart. You know appearances are everything. My work speaks for itself. Maybe, he said, but legacies like Smith Hotels don't survive on maybe. Her voice trembled, but didn't break. Are you suggesting I resign? I'm suggesting you understand the weight of who you're aligning yourself with. Livia stood. If I were a man, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He didn't deny it. As she reached the door, he added, think carefully, Miss Perez, because in this world, perception is truth. She left without speaking to William. That night, Mel dragged her to their favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurant. I told you, Mel said, poking her taco. You fall for a billionaire, it comes with enemies. Livia didn't touch her food. She just stared out the window. It was just a hug, she whispered. Mel looked at her. No, she said. It was the beginning of something you're too scared to fight for. She built everything on hard work, but all they saw was the man who looked at her like she was more than an employee. Richard Smith's veiled threat, in Livia's trembling refusal to shrink. When the truth doesn't matter and the whispers won't stop, do you walk away from love to protect your name? Chapter 6. The day she almost walked away. Monday morning arrived like a shadow Livia couldn't shake. She stood in her tiny kitchen staring at the toast she hadn't touched, wearing a blouse she couldn't afford to wrinkle, because even now, even after everything, she couldn't bring herself to be careless. She opened her laptop, typed 3 words, letter of resignation, and just sat there. Meanwhile, 2 floors above her, William was pacing his office like a man trying to walk away from his own name. He hadn't shaved, hadn't slept. He'd canceled every meeting except one. At 9:25:05, he texted her, "Can we talk, please?" She didn't answer. At 9:07, she hit send on the email. It was done. Livia didn't pack her things. She walked out of the building with nothing in her hands, not her mug, not her notebooks, not the photo booth strip Emily had sneakily taken of her and William at the charity gala. She left it all behind. Like she hadn't once believed in more. Mel's voice rang through the phone before she even said hello. What? You quit? I couldn't stay, Mel. They were never going to see me as anything but the girl who kissed the CEO. But you're not just that. You are the job, Livia. You earned every inch of it. It doesn't matter if no one believes it. Mel was quiet for a moment. Does he know? Livia sat on the bus, forehead against the window. He will soon. Back in his office, William saw the email subject line and didn't even open it. He ran, literally ran, down the stairwell past shocked assistants and boardroom whispers. By the time he reached the lobby, she was gone. That night, the world tilted in strange, aching ways. William sat at Emily's apartment, silent, while she paced in front of him. She resigned, Emily asked. Just like that? He thinks it's the only way to save her career. And what about you, William? He shook his head, defeated. I can't force her to stay. Not when the people I'm supposed to lead are tearing her apart. Emily stopped walking, crossed her arms. You know what I think? She asked quietly. I think this is the first time you've loved someone who didn't need you to fix them, just fight for them. He looked up, eyes raw. I don't know how to protect her without breaking everything else. Maybe it's not about protecting her, she whispered. Maybe it's about standing next to her, even if it burns. 2 days later, Livia walked into a small interview in a bland beige office with flickering fluorescent lights. They offered her half the pay, no benefits, and an awkward smile when she mentioned her last job. Smith Hotels. Huh, the man asked. You were the assistant? Her voice tightened. Events lead. He shrugged. Sure. She didn't take the job. Back in her apartment, she spent the night on the couch, rereading their old messages. Team meeting, yellow sweater optional. Don't bring your purse, I bruise easily. What if the right person starts with the wrong hug? She cried for the first time in days. Thursday night, William parked his car across the street from her building. He didn't knock. He just sat there, watching the light in her window, praying for a miracle he hadn't earned. His phone buzzed. Natalie. The Malibu event's a disaster. We need you. He turned off the screen. For the first time in his life, the company could wait. Friday morning, Livia received a package at her door. It wasn't from HR. It wasn't from Smith Hotels. It was William's phone. Taped to it, a yellow sticky note. Press play. Hands trembling, she did. His voice came through the speaker, low and raw. If you're hearing this, it means I finally had the courage to say what I should have said the day you handed me a cupcake and didn't know who I was. I love you, Livia. Not because you challenge me, not because you're brilliant, but because you see the version of me I buried under all the expectations. I stood up to my father, told him the company doesn't mean anything without the kind of people who remind us what it's all for. If you still want us, if there's even a chance, I'll be at Central Park, the Lake Cafe, Saturday at 6:00 p.m. If you don't come, I'll walk away. But I had to try. The message ended. Livia sat on the floor, clutching the phone to her chest, tears falling faster than she could wipe them away. The world didn't fall apart, it just tilted, and nothing felt like hers anymore. The moment she sends the resignation email and walks out without anything but her broken hope. When everything you worked for is taken by whispers, do you keep fighting for the job or the love behind it? The park at 6 p.m. Saturday felt like a dare. Livia paced her apartment with the same energy of someone preparing for court, not love. She had changed outfits 4 times, none of them felt right. Why do I care what I wear to maybe get rejected? She whispered into the mirror. Her phone buzzed. Mel again. Are you going? Livia didn't answer. Because truthfully, she didn't know. 5:28 p.m. The sky above Central Park was the color of soft gold. One of those June evenings that seemed to pause the entire city in its tracks. William sat at the cafe by the lake, tie loosened, hands folded tightly in his lap. He hadn't ordered anything. Couldn't. Every time someone walked by, his heart stuttered. He'd never felt like this before. Not before a deal. Not even before his father's boardroom summons. This was different. Because for once, everything he had couldn't buy what he wanted. Livia stood on the other side of the street. Heart pounding. She saw him, alone, waiting. He looked smaller. Not in stature, in armor. No bodyguards, no posture. Just a man hoping she'd say yes. She almost turned around. But the voice from that message, the one that cracked when he said, "I'll walk away if you don't come," pulled her forward. "Hi," she said softly, stepping out from behind a tree. William stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. "Hi." They just stared. She was in jeans and a soft white blouse. No makeup, no armor. "You came," he said. "You sent your phone, William," she replied, lips twitching. "That's extreme, even for you." He laughed once, a short, nervous sound. "I didn't know how else to tell you I'm serious." They sat. Silence again. But it wasn't empty. Finally, Livia broke it. "Why me?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "You could be with someone who wears designer heels, who already knows which fork goes where, who doesn't get called a social climber for accepting a promotion." "I don't care about forks." She gave him a look. "I care about you," he said plainly. "You made me laugh, you made me think. You hit me with a purse and then told me I was a maniac, and you were right. I still stand by that." "I know." He reached across the table, but didn't touch her. "I stood up to my father," he said, "told him I'd walk away from the company if he couldn't accept you." Livia's breath caught. "You did what?" "He tried to intimidate you, he crossed a line. So I made one of my own." "William, I don't want you to choose between your career and me. I want to build a world where you don't have to." For the first time since the day she quit, she let herself believe him. Let herself feel what she'd been trying to bury. "I was ready to walk away," she whispered. "I know," he replied, equally quiet. "But I wasn't." They sat like that for a while, watching rowboats float on the lake, listening to the slow hush of wind through leaves. No grand speeches, just space to breathe. Then William stood and reached into his pocket. "I wanted to show you something," he said. From a small folded piece of paper he pulled out a sketch. It was a building, beautiful, elegant, glass and light. At the top, a single name etched in soft handwriting. Perez Event Center. "I designed it years ago, but last week I reworked it." She stared, stunned. "This would be yours," he said, "if you ever wanted it." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't need a building." "I know, but I thought maybe we could build something anyway." They walked through the park in silence. His hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away. As the sun dipped low and the sky blushed with dusk, Livia whispered, "I'm not ready to come back to the company." William nodded. "Okay, but I'm not walking away from you either." He turned toward her, eyes lit. "So, what are we doing?" She smiled. "Starting from where we should have." And she reached for his hand, this time on purpose. She showed up to say goodbye but found herself standing at the beginning again. When he unfolds the drawing of the building named after her and finally says, "Let's build something," what if the most important things aren't the ones we build with money, but with heart? Chapter 8. The night she didn't go home. The sky over Manhattan held on to its light longer than usual, like it knew the night needed more time. Livia stood with William at the edge of the park, fingers still threaded through his like they'd always belonged there. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. The last of the lake's shimmer faded behind them. And still, she didn't let go. "I should head home," she said softly, but she didn't take a step. William looked down at her, at the way the wind brushed her hair across her cheek, at the tired but defiant look in her eyes. Like someone who'd been brave for far too long. "Let me walk you to the subway," he offered. She hesitated, then nodded. They walked the way people do when they don't want to say goodbye. Slow, with conversation that floated between silence and glances. When they reached the corner of Lexington and 80 Surf, she stopped. This was the line, the place between starting over and walking away again. "I've never done this," she admitted. "This thing, where it's not a secret, but it's still fragile." He tilted his head gently. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want to stay with you tonight, but I don't want it to feel like something I'll regret in the morning." William's expression didn't shift into triumph or charm. It just softened. "I don't want one night, Livia," he said. "I want everything." They took a cab. The ride was quiet. Her hand stayed in his the entire time. When they reached his place, a high-rise that screamed elegance and understatement, he didn't open the door like he was showing her something expensive. He opened it like he was letting her into a quiet part of himself. She stepped in. The apartment was warm with amber light, hardwood floors, art that wasn't bragging, and books. So many books. "You read?" she asked, surprised. He shrugged. "Architects are secretly poets. We build what we don't know how to say." She turned slowly, looking around. "This doesn't feel like I imagined." "How'd you imagine it?" "Colder." "You thought I lived in an ice castle?" he teased. "I thought you lived in a world where girls like me don't get to stay." He stepped closer. "You're wrong." He didn't touch her that night. Not first. Instead, he handed her a sweatshirt. The same one he always wore in meetings when no one was looking. Soft gray, a little faded, with the company logo stitched at the sleeve. She changed in the bathroom and came out barefoot, sleeves covering her hands. He was on the couch, 2 mugs of tea in front of him. "Chamomile. How'd you know? You looked like you hadn't slept in weeks." She didn't argue. She just curled next to him on the couch, and for the first time in a long time, Livia let herself lean. Really lean. Her head rested on his chest, his arm wrapped around her without hesitation. He talked. Not about the company, not about the whispers or the boardroom wars. About everything else. Childhood. Music. The first time he cried in public. The last time she trusted someone and got hurt. He told her about the time he got locked in his father's office at age 9 for breaking a $6,000 0-cent sculpture and swore he'd never cry again. She told him about the day her mother couldn't afford rent, so they lived in her aunt's basement for a year, and she learned how to pretend like it didn't matter. "Maybe that's why we found each other," she said quietly. "You forgot how to cry. I forgot how to feel." "And now," he whispered, "I think I'm remembering." At some point, the talking stopped. Not because there was nothing more to say, but because the stillness felt like enough. They fell asleep that way. Not tangled, not dramatic, just close, honest. His heart beat under her ear, her breath against his collarbone. At 4:12 a.m., she woke up. The windows glowed faintly with the city's hum. He was still holding her, even in sleep. She looked at him. The man she'd called a maniac in a train station. The man who gave her a voice when everyone tried to bury it. And in that moment, she knew. She wasn't scared anymore. In the morning, she left a note on his nightstand. "I didn't stay because I was yours. I stayed because I felt like I was mine again." It wasn't fireworks or a grand gesture. It was a couch, 2 mugs of tea, and someone saying, "You're safe here." The moment she falls asleep in his sweatshirt, not as a lover, but as someone finally letting herself rest. Isn't that what love really is? The place you come back to when you're tired of fighting everything else? Chapter 9. The lights went out. The Malibu launch was the biggest event Smith Hotels had ever hosted. Celebrity chefs, coastal governors, half the board of tourism, and one woman who wasn't supposed to be there. Livia stood in the shadows of the catering team, dressed in black, clipboard in hand. Not as a guest, not as the events director, but as a temp staffer hired by a third-party coordinator. Irony, she thought, wore designer heels. She hadn't seen William in over a week. Since the night she stayed, since she didn't go home. They'd messaged, briefly. No labels, no promises. Just understanding. Richard Smith was center stage, flanked by William, Natalie, and a slew of men who called themselves visionaries. None of them noticed the woman adjusting the champagne flow behind the silk curtain, but the staff did. The older waiter who'd worked with her before whispered, "You should be up there." Livia just smiled, not tonight. But the universe had other plans. At 7:41 p.m., just as the violinist swelled and Richard Smith raised his glass to toast the expansion, the lights went out. Complete blackout. Gasps. Panic. One woman in stilettos actually shrieked, "We're under attack!" Livia's heart raced. She'd seen this once before, a failed relay, the generator missing its cue. The crowd murmured louder. William was already pulling out his phone flashlight, speaking into his earpiece, barking calm orders. But before he could say another word, a clear, calm voice echoed from the corner of the room. "Everyone, please stay where you are. The emergency system will activate in 90 seconds. Heads turned. There she was. Lydia. Flashlight in one hand, radio in the other. Calm, commanding, complete. "You," Richard said, stunned. "Me," she replied. "Still the girl who remembers where the backup panel is." She turned to the staff. "Candles to the central tables, guests near the east windows, guide them to the terrace. There's still natural light." The catering team moved like clockwork under her voice. William stepped aside, watching. He didn't intervene. He didn't lead. He let her. Within minutes, the chaos settled. Champagne was redirected, hors d'oeuvres moved to the outdoor lounge. Laughter returned like a cautious guest. One of the governors said aloud, "Whoever she is, she just saved your event." William smiled, eyes never leaving her. "She always does." When the generator finally kicked in, applause broke out across the room. Not for the techs, not for the planners. For her. Livia tried to disappear again. But this time, William didn't let her. He walked to the small stage, tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice shaking just enough. "Tonight wasn't what we planned, but it became something better because of one person." Livia froze. "She's not on the payroll anymore. She wasn't invited to speak, but she's the reason any of you are still holding champagne instead of flashlights. He scanned the crowd. Found her. Livia Perez, would you please come up here? The spotlight found her before she could move, and so did the whispers. Is that her? She used to date the CEO, right? Didn't she quit? But she walked, one step at a time, through all the eyes, all the judgment, until she stood beside William, heart in her throat. He leaned toward her and whispered, I had to. Then he turned to the crowd. She didn't need a title to lead. She didn't need a promotion to perform. She just did what she always does, turn disaster into brilliance. The audience erupted in applause. And then, quieter, closer, William looked at her. Also, she's the woman I'm in love with. Gasps, whispers, and camera flash. Livia didn't flinch. She just breathed. For the first time in weeks, she felt light. After the event, Richard pulled her aside. I underestimated you, he said simply. Livia didn't gloat. She just smiled. Most people do. As the night ended, William found her by the staff entrance, watching the city shimmer in recovery. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I'm not coming back. He swallowed. I figured. But I'm also not walking away anymore. He blinked. What does that mean? It means, let's build something that isn't company approved. Let's do this our way. He smiled, the kind that held relief and hope, and finally, even if the lights go out again, she stepped closer. I've always had the candles. They thought she'd fall without her title. Instead, she rose without permission. The moment he calls her on stage and tells the world she's the woman I'm in love with. When the world tries to dim your light, what if you shine anyway? Chapter 10. The ring wasn't the right size. 3 months later, Livia's apartment smelled like fresh paint and stubborn dreams. Boxes lined the hallway. Most of them weren't hers, but she still labeled them like they were. Kitchen. Books. His favorite hoodie. Because they weren't just moving in together. They were moving toward something neither of them had planned and neither wanted to run from. Her business had a waiting list. Perez Events & Co. wasn't just a company, it was a name whispered in boardrooms and bridal forums alike. Thank you. And William? He was learning how to let go. Of titles, of timelines, of being the version of himself that looked good in annual reports, but felt like a ghost in the mirror. He was still CEO. But now, he was hers, too. One afternoon, she found him in the living room, knee-deep in a pile of sketchbooks. What are you doing? She asked. Trying to figure out how to design the lobby for your next venue, he mumbled. You're ridiculous. You're welcome. She walked over, hands dusted with flour. She'd been baking. He looked up, and for a second, he just stared. Marry me, he blurted. She blinked. I'm sorry? Marry me, Livia. No setup, no candlelit restaurant, no grand speech. He stood up, walked over. I love you when you cry at commercials, when you fight for interns, when you roll your eyes at my spreadsheets. I love that you walked into my life by accident and made everything make sense. Then, almost as an afterthought, he pulled out a small velvet box. Opened it. Paused. Oh no, he said. What? She asked. It's not the right size. She laughed. Of course it's not. Emily said you were a size 6. I used to be, before stress eating 3 years of cupcakes in 6 months. They both laughed and she slipped the ring on anyway. Too loose, too perfect. 2 weeks later, they stood beneath a canopy of string lights in Central Park. No press, no board members, just friends, family, and the woman who ran the pretzel cart who insisted on being the unofficial flower girl. Mel cried before the ceremony even started. Emily tripped on the aisle runner and shouted, "Nailed it!" before bursting into giggles. Livia wore a dress she'd designed herself. William wore the same tie from the night he met her, the one that still had a faint cupcake stain on the edge. When the officiant asked if anyone had objections, Winstead, their French bulldog, barked once. Too late, Winston, Livia whispered. I'm already gone. Those weren't traditional, they were theirs. I promise to never schedule a board meeting at 8 a.m. again, William said, unless you're there to bring the coffee. "I promise to never hit you with my purse again," Livia replied, "unless you really deserve it." Laughter, tears, and a kiss that made time forget itself. Afterward, under the same tree where William once waited for her with nothing but hope and his phone recorder, she pulled him aside. "You remember what you said back then?" she asked. "I said a lot of dumb things." He said, "That hug at the station was the best mistake I ever made." He smiled. "Still true." "Well," she whispered, holding up her hand, "even the ring wasn't the right size." He looked at it. It hung loose, glinting in the twilight. "But it fits now," she said. He kissed her knuckles. "So do we. Some things come loose. Some arrive wrong. But love finds its size when you stop trying to make it perfect. When he proposes out of nowhere and the ring is wrong, but she says yes anyway? What if the things that don't fit at first are the ones that end up fitting you best? If this story touched you, I didn't know a wrong hug could lead to a right life. Didn't know that showing up late to a train station, you could make someone early to everything that matters. But maybe that's what love is. Not perfect, not polished. Just two people who make room for each other's mistakes, until even the broken parts feel like they belong. Livia wasn't the girl he was looking for. She didn't wear the right sweater. She didn't carry herself like someone who belonged in a boardroom. She wasn't part of the plan. And William, he wasn't soft. He wasn't safe. He was born into power, raised on pressure, and taught to lead with silence. But something happened when they collided. She hit him with a purse, and he finally felt human. She didn't fall in love with the CEO. She fell for the man who made tea when she was tired, who listened, who stood on a stage in front of everything that gave him power, and said, "She's the one." And he didn't fall for a girl with the perfect resume. He fell for the woman who didn't need his last name to be complete, who left when she had every reason to stay, and stayed when the whole world told her to run. They built something, those two. Not out of money, not out of deals, but out of late-night texts, botched proposals, wrong-sized rings, and the kind of forgiveness that doesn't need to be asked for. If you've ever felt like you weren't the right person, if you've ever loved someone who didn't see you until it was almost too late, if you've ever been mistaken, overlooked, underestimated, then maybe this wasn't just their story. Maybe it's yours too. Because the best kind of love isn't found. It's stumbled into, spilled, slipped, smeared with frosting and wrapped in a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big. And when it stays, even after the lights go out, that's when you know it's real. If this story touched you, the next one goes even deeper. I'll be right here, waiting for the next wrong hug that turns into everything.